The Romanovs were a powerful and influential family that ruled Russia for over 300 years, but their reign came to a tragic end in 1918 when they were executed by the Bolsheviks during the Russian Revolution. What does it take to end a 300-year-old dynasty, and how does a family with all its power and influence meet such a tragic fate? The story of the Romanovs is a cautionary tale, reminding us that history can be cruel and unforgiving. Join us as we delve into the lives and the times of the Romanovs, the last Tsars of Russia, and the reason behind their tragic end. But before we start, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, and if you're new to this channel, subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay connected. So, without further ado, let's get started. Imagine being part of one of the most powerful and influential families in Europe, overseeing significant changes in a country's history and making it a great European power. This was the life of the Romanovs, the last Tsar of Russia, and his family. But let's take a journey back in time to explore the historical background of the Romanov Dynasty. Michael Romanov's election as Tsar in 1613 marked the beginning of the Romanov Dynasty. For centuries, the family oversaw many significant changes in Russia's history, from the reign of Peter the Great to Catherine the Great. The Romanovs modernized Russia, developed its industry, and expanded its territory, becoming one of the most powerful and influential families in Europe. Nicholas II, the last Tsar of Russia, was born in 1868 to Alexander III and Maria Feodorovna. He ascended to the throne in 1894, succeeding his father after his death. As a devout Christian, Nicholas II was deeply connected to traditional values and strong religious beliefs, but his reign was plagued by a series of challenges and setbacks that would ultimately lead to the downfall of the Romanov dynasty. Nicholas II's reign saw significant social, economic, and political turmoil in Russia. The country was facing widespread poverty, food shortages, and labor strikes. The Russian people were increasingly frustrated with their government and demanded change. The Tsar's policies were unpopular, and his government was plagued by corruption, inefficiency, and a lack of accountability. His reliance on the secret police to maintain order and suppress dissent only fueled public outrage. Despite the challenges, Nicholas II remained committed to his traditional values, and his reign was marked by his deep connection to the Orthodox Church. His family was also an essential part of his life, and he was a devoted husband and father. However, the Tsar's inability to address the growing unrest and his government's failures ultimately led to the downfall of the Romanov dynasty. The Russian Revolution was a pivotal event in world history that would ultimately lead to the downfall of the Romanov dynasty. The revolution was a result of years of social, economic, and political upheaval in Russia. The causes of the revolution were numerous, including widespread poverty, food shortages, and labor strikes, as well as a lack of political rights and freedoms for the Russian people. In 1917, the Russian Revolution began with the February Revolution, which saw the overthrow of the Tsarist government and the establishment of a provisional government. The provisional government was short-lived, however, as it failed to address the underlying issues facing Russia, including the ongoing war with Germany and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. In October 1917, the Bolshevik Party, led by Vladimir Lenin, seized power in a coup d'etat, establishing the first communist government in the world. The Bolsheviks quickly consolidated their power, implementing radical policies that aimed to redistribute wealth and establish a socialist economy. The Romanovs had been under house arrest since their abdication in March 1917. The events leading up to the execution of the Romanovs were marked by controversy and debate. Some historians argue that the Bolsheviks were afraid that the Romanovs would become a rallying point for counter-revolutionary forces, while others claimed that the decision to execute the family was made by Lenin himself. Regardless of the reasons behind their execution, the Romanovs' tragic fate remains one of the most enduring and haunting stories of the 20th century. The Romanovs' imprisonment in Tobolsk was merely the beginning of their tragic fate. After several months, the Bolsheviks moved the family to Yekaterinburg, where they were imprisoned in the Apatiev House, a small mansion that would become infamous for the events that occurred there. Conditions in the Apatiev House were harsh, and the Romanovs were kept under constant surveillance by their Bolshevik guards. The family was separated, and the Tsar and his son Alexei held in one room, while the rest of the family and their servants were kept in another. The Bolsheviks confiscated their belongings and made them wear rough prison-issue clothing. Despite several attempts by their supporters to rescue them, the Romanovs remained in captivity. The Bolsheviks feared that their release could lead to a counter-revolution, or that they would become figureheads for the White Army, the anti-Bolshevik forces fighting against them in the Russian Civil War. On the night of July 17, 1918, the Romanovs were awakened in the middle of the night and were told they were being moved to a safer location. The family was led down to the basement of the Ipatiev house, where they were told to wait while their transportation was being arranged. Shortly after, a squad of Bolshevik soldiers entered the room and read out the order for their execution. Nicholas II, his wife Alexandra, their 5 children and their servants were lined up against the wall and shot. The executions were brutal and violent, and it is reported that the executioners had used bayonets and pistol whips to finish the job. The bodies of the Romanovs were taken to a nearby forest and hastily buried in unmarked graves. It'd be several decades before their remains were found and identified through DNA testing. The execution of the Romanovs marked the end of the Romanov Dynasty and the beginning of a new era in Russian history. The brutal manner of their deaths shocked the world and added to the sense of tragedy surrounding their story. The Romanovs' execution was a culmination of years of social, economic, and political turmoil in Russia, and it would have far-reaching consequences for the country's future. The execution of the Romanovs was a defining moment in Russian history, a moment that would come to symbolize the brutality of the Bolshevik regime and the violence that marked the Russian Revolution. The reasons behind their execution were complex, and they remain a topic of much debate among historians and scholars. One of the primary justifications given by the Bolsheviks for the killings was that the Romanovs were a threat to the socialist order they were trying to establish in Russia. The Bolsheviks believed that the Romanovs represented the old order. In their eyes, the Romanovs were a symbol of everything that was wrong with the old regime, and their continued existence posed a danger to the revolution. Another factor that played a significant role in the decision to execute the Romanovs was the fear that they would become figureheads for the White Army. The Bolsheviks were engaged in a brutal civil war, one that threatened to tear the country apart. The fear was that the Romanovs would become a rallying point for their enemies, a symbol of resistance against the Bolsheviks. By eliminating them, the Bolsheviks hoped to deprive their enemies of a powerful symbol. The execution of the Romanovs also served as a warning to other potential threats to Bolshevik rule. The Bolsheviks were determined to maintain their hold on power at any cost, and the execution of the Romanovs was a clear message to anyone who might consider challenging them. It was a brutal and violent demonstration of the lengths to which the Bolsheviks would go to maintain control. What was the impact of the Romanovs' execution on Russian history, and why does their story continue to captivate popular culture today? The Romanovs' execution had a significant impact on Russian history, marking the end of a centuries-old dynasty and the beginning of a new era of political and social upheaval. The execution also had profound implications for the future of the Soviet Union and its relations with the rest of the world. The aftermath of the execution was marked by political instability and violence. The Bolsheviks were engaged in a civil war with their opponents, and the execution of the Romanovs only served to intensify the conflict. The Romanovs had been a symbol of stability and continuity in Russia, and their removal left a significant void in the country's political landscape. The Bolsheviks, in their efforts to establish a new socialist order, effectively severed Russia's ties to its past. Despite the passage of time, the Romanovs and their story continue to captivate popular culture around the world. The fascination with the Romanovs is due in part to the mystery and intrigue surrounding their lives and their tragic fate. The Romanovs were a royal family with immense wealth and power, but their lives were also marked by tragedy and scandal. The story of their execution, with its brutal violence and senseless tragedy, has become a symbol of the senseless violence that can arise from political turmoil. The fascination with the Romanovs has been fueled in recent years by a resurgence of interest in royal families and their lives. Shows like The Crown and Victoria have rekindled interest in the lives of the British royals, while movies like Anna Karenina and The Last Tsars have explored the lives of the Romanovs themselves. The popularity of these shows and movies suggests that the allure of royal families, with their wealth, power, and privilege, is as strong as ever. The story of the Romanovs also continues to inspire art and literature. Russian writers like Fyodor Dostoevsky and Leo Tolstoy explored themes of power, wealth, and privilege in their works, often drawing on the lives of the Romanovs for inspiration. More recently, writers like Robert K. Massey have explored the Romanovs' lives and the events leading up to their execution, helping to keep their story alive for a new generation of readers. The tragic end of the Romanovs has captured the imagination of people for decades. The story of the Russian royal family's demise is one that is filled with intrigue, drama, and tragedy. Their legacy has had a profound impact on Russian history, and their story continues to captivate people worldwide. The Romanovs were more than just a royal family. They represented the embodiment of Russian culture and tradition. They had a rich history and a legacy that spanned over 3 centuries. Their execution marked the end of an era, not just for the Romanovs, but for Russia as a whole. The Romanov story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of absolute power and the devastating consequences of political instability. It also reminds us of the importance of preserving our cultural heritage and the need to remember our history, no matter how painful it may be. Despite their tragic end, the Romanovs continue to have an enduring legacy. They left behind a cultural heritage that still resonates with people today. The story of Anastasia Romanov, the youngest daughter of Nicholas II, has inspired countless movies, books, and plays. The myth of her survival has captured the hearts of people all around the world, and her story continues to captivate new generations. What do you think would have happened to Russia if the Romanovs had not been executed? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. We hope you enjoyed today's video. If you liked the video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon. History is great. Magna Historia.